Hi, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Time with Masterminds. Well, if you have been following us, you know we've been doing a series on board of directors at nonprofit organizations. And we have a CEO who has spent most of her time as an executive director and now CEO building relationships with her board members. And if you remember, we have had several speakers on the show talking about the importance of building relationships with those who are on your board. Except we get asked, well, how? Who has the time? And what's the value in building relationships? Well, grab yourself a cup of coffee and hang out with us for 30 minutes because we are going to hear why.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee Time with Masterminds. My name is Peta Blakely, and I'm the founder and principal of Blakely Consulting.
Welcome to Coffee Time with Masterminds. I am Cynthia Rojas, founder and principal of To Your Growth.
Welcome to Coffee Time with Masterminds. I'm Rebecca Tuttle, founder and principal of Grant Right Now and Grant Writing for Good.
Hi again. This is Coffee Time with Masterminds, a 30-minute show with and for leaders of nonprofit mission-based organizations. And today we have a treat. We are visited by Dr. Alice Forrester, CEO of Clifford Beers Community Health Partners. And it is a big organization, and we're going to hear all about that as well. But before we bring in Dr. Forrester, I want to say hi to my co-host, Peta. Peta, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm so excited. So excited. As we begin to wrap up our board series, we've learned quite a bit.
We've learned an incredible amount. I've learned an incredible amount.
Yeah. So let's bring on Dr. Forrester, who is going to tell us all about building relationships. Hey, Alice, how are you?
I'm great. It's so great to see both of you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome back. We love having you. And I think we told you this the last time you were on the show. So Peta and I have been doing a series on all things board of directors, and we get requests from leaders about, how to manage board members. And so we've had authors and other consultants and leaders who have taught us so much. However, one of the things that I get asked all the time is, how do I build relationships with my board members? And who has that kind of time? I'm running the organization. Mm-hmm. I always think of you, Alice, because that's number one on your list. So let's hear a little bit about the organization, because it has grown quite a bit. So when I met you and worked with you, we were Clifford Beers.
That's right. And Clifford W. Beers Guidance Clinic, Inc., one of the oldest outpatient mental health clinics in Connecticut, and we like to say in the country, although there's a group in California that will debate that with us. But we started when Cynthia and I started together, working together in 2005. We really basically started our career working on a small grant from the National Child Traumatic Stress Network on bringing evidence-based practice into the agency, the clinical as an outpatient mental health clinic. And that grant actually led us into many different ventures. Most importantly, I think what the grant did was allowed us to start collecting data. And then we had a data team, and that then gave us some more footprint to be able to get more grants and not be afraid of federal grants. So we've built the organization. In January, actually, officially, Clifford Beers Community Health Partners separated from Clifford Beers. Now it's called Community Care Center. And what we are is a parent subsidiary model. And we have 3 subsidiary organizations: Mid-Fairfield Community Care Center, which is a similar outpatient mental health clinic in Norwalk, Connecticut, as well as Clifford Beers, which serves 19 towns in the greater New Haven region. And then Youth Continuum, which serves youth 16 through 24, homeless and transitional living in New Haven, Greater New Haven region, and they work across the state for working with homeless youth. And so right now, the Health Partners has a board, and all of the other subsidiaries, they are separate 501(c)(3)s, so they have their own working board. But I, as the CEO of the parent company, work closely with their boards, in particular around leadership. And for example, we just hired the CEO of one of Youth Continuum.
Oh, nice.
He's the fellow who was running it is retiring next month. So,
Oh, wow.
Working together in a transition team, I worked with their board to hire the new CEO. Executive.
And so I think you also, did you mention Farnham House as the fourth?
Well, yeah. So one of the other strategies that's been going on is, as we begin to do due diligence with other nonprofits, we begin to ask the question, is this a merger or is this a subsidiary? And we have a couple of companies that have come in as mergers. So Farnham Neighborhood House, which is older than Clifford Beers, actually, is one of the community settlement houses in New Haven. Probably, I think it's 130 years old or something. And it's a community center with school readiness classrooms and lots of after-school activities. And then they own an 80-acre camp in a town in the country in Connecticut called Durham, Connecticut. So they merged into Clifford Beers Community Care Center, and it was a beautiful merger. They were sort of having a lot of difficult time with the board and fundraising, and they needed that back office work. And one of the things Health Partners does is not only work to advocate for this whole child, whole family, whole community model, but we also help, run the back offices for all of these subsidiaries. So that was the key. They've done fantastic.
So in the merger, their board is now part of your board. It's not a separate board.
A few of their board members joined our board.
Okay.
So for every merger, it's a discussion between 1 and 2 seats.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter if it's 2, even if we have a company that's coming in July, actually to Health Partners, and it's about a $300,000 organization, but it fits better with Health Partners, and we're going to give them 2 seats because if you have people who are volunteers in the community who are excited about their project and their work, it's only going to be infectious in the board.
Yeah.
So, we're excited about having that kind of.
Okay. So the reason why this is important is because you participate or are part of 3 boards because of 4. Okay. Because of the organization. That's a lot of board members. You're the person to talk to, because I know leaders that can't handle 1 board.
Well,
and you're working with 4. Yeah. So how many people in total are we talking about?
I think we're under somewhere, there's the bylaw number and then there's the actual number.
Right. Yeah. So tell us.
I think we're probably somewhere under 50. With the 4 different boards.
Wow.
Some are overlapping. So some, some of the folks who are on my Clifford Beers Health Partner board, they actually were the strategic planning committee of Clifford Beers. And we masterminded all of these crazy things together. And so they just joined the Health Partner board, but they're also on the clinic board too.
So let's go back to Clifford Beers. Let's go back to, so you become executive director in 2006?
7.
Okay, so 2007, you become ED. You also realize that 5 years from that point, you will be celebrating the 100-year anniversary to the agency, which is a big deal because depending on who's in the room, we are the oldest child guidance clinic in the country, depending who's in the room, Peter, because that's been debated. So
I bet.
But so what do you realize is your first task in terms of the board, right? You're new ED.
Right. Well, I think the first realization for me as executive director, and it took a little while, maybe a year, is I realized, oh my God, I thought these folks were my boss because I'd only been, an employee before. And I realized actually that no, they are my boss, meaning I have responsibility to them, and they, um, set my salary and my contract, but they also want me to be in charge. So it's like this, kind of like mind blowing experience of like, oh my goodness, I thought they were going to tell me what to do. And actually they want me to tell them what to do. And then I tell them what I did, it's this,
Yeah.
it was this powerful, I remember talking about it and like, oh,
It's a funny tension because
yes,
they are your boss,
right.
but it's up to the CEO or the executive director
Yeah.
to manage them.
Yeah.
So,
And that the interesting, not only, so their responsibility as a volunteer, and I'm sure we've all been on board. So, you know, I'm, I'm a tenuous board member because I'm so freaking busy. So I'm like, oh, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. I can sell them mini tickets or I could advise you, so on things. So that's kind of where the point of tension, I think, really works well in a board. Is when you bring people on who are actual experts in that particular area, because no insult to you guys as consultants, but what you do, if you set your board up well enough, you've got a couple of really good experts in different areas that you would use as you might use a consultant. For example, I have a current board member who's amazing around branding, communication. He helped us early on in the M&A process. And so I've just set up, I had one meeting with him and I swear I felt like I was walking on clouds after. And now I'm going to meet with him every 2 weeks and, kind of get over the hurdle of what is Clifford Beers Community Health Partners, branding and communication around that. Where can we go and what we do? He gave me some great ideas and support. And then he'll come back to the board. And, when that topic comes up, he'll be able to speak to it as opposed to me speaking to it. Why are you doing that? They'll talk about it. So I'm sorry, I diverted off the 100th. So what I did for the 100th was really, really fun. Cynthia and I worked together on this. We put a group of leading women in the community together. We invited about 50 people. I think we had about 30 at the Lawn Club in New Haven, treated them to lunch, and we brainstormed what we could do to celebrate the 100th and we decided not the past, but what's the future of mental health and what could we do to talk about what's the next 100 years look like. And so that was really fun. We generated some ideas, brainstorming ideas. And then from that, because it was so much fun, we kind of gathered a group of women to lead the initiative of the 100th anniversary. And we planned a couple of years of events over that period that culminated in a 100th anniversary event at Whitney Center at Yale. No, Whitney Commons.
and it was originally supposed to include Oprah Winfrey, who was not available that day. But we had Glenn Close. We had Glenn Close. We had we had a couple of Kennedys. It was a big deal. But Alice and I, we started following people. It was crazy. We ended up in like the Kennedy Space Center where Biden was one day. We were chasing people, right? Yeah. Like Alice was like, "Oh, the vice president is going to be at the Kennedy Center. You want to go? Sure."
Well, it was a little different than that. Actually, it was someone we gave the award to for the 100th, a consumer who was connected to a vineyard, and his mom invited us to this Kennedy $1,000 a plate Kennedy Center dinner. Yeah. And, the whole event of leading up to the 100th was so great because you know, it's fun to send 100th. It's fun to be on a board when you're celebrating 100th, but it was funner, if that's a word, to be planning for what's next and thinking about, we did a lot of, we did a breakthrough series. What's the vision? We created a white paper called a Wellness Center for Chronically Stressed Families. And we did a whole national conversation with folks around what does mental health need to look like in the future. And so that was really fantastic. And, you know, we had a lot of products that were delivered, you know, from there, and a path that's actually led us now over the last 10 years, you know, to be where we are. Of course, you know, 10 years ago, it wasn't like the apparent subsidiary for a whole bunch of nonprofits. Right. That wasn't it. Yeah. But the concept of working with partners, affiliate networks who serve the kind of families and, you know, and the work that we do and translating that work was really important.
But the reason why I mentioned this is because I got to see, and I had a front row seat to how you engage individuals. Mm. And some of those individuals served on your board. Mm. They also connected you, which is how we ended up seeing Biden, right? We got connected to that family that is dedicated their lives to mental health and issues around the brain. And so,
right. Yeah.
Brain research. And so what is important for leaders to recognize is the opportunity of relationship.
Yeah.
Right. And how you use that as a pathway, one, to build on the relationship, but also to then see, are these individuals potential board members? And are they going to be good board members? Now, you did mention something. You mentioned the marketing person and how having highly skilled board members is really key. But we had an author on the show who talked about Hardy Smith. And so he has a book called Stop the Blame Game, because he also experiences leaders and board members blaming each other for terrible experiences. And he says, you want to make sure that you pick people who are passionate about the mission.
Right.
That getting someone who's highly skilled, getting someone who's a fundraiser, that's all great. But at the end of the day, you want people who are passionate. How do you balance that? The need for the skills and the passion?
I would pick passion first before skill. You're lucky if skill follows. And you know, it's interesting because you mentioned relationship, right? So it's all about relationship and getting to know your board members and what are they passionate about. I mean, mission work is about being passionate and purposeful. And folks want to contribute. They want to, you know, the board's responsibility in nonprofit, I always see it as they're protecting the taxpayers' money. Their job is to be making sure that the mission is adhered to and that the fiscal oversight is, the money is going where it needs to go.
Yes.
And those are the two jobs really of a nonprofit board. And so, you know, the day-to-day operations, you know, it have to work, you know, have to be smooth because you don't want to be at risking, you know, any of the assets of the organization if there's a lawsuit or something like that. Like, you know, you risk, compliance, all of those things are very important, but they don't oversee those things. I do. And what they're doing is really paying attention to, are you doing what you say you're supposed to be doing? And how are the dollars being spent on that? So with that in mind, then you get people who are attracted to, you know, doing good. And who have some, it's always, as I've moved over the last 15 years as the CEO, you know, it's always useful to have someone who's been on a board before. You know, when you have a person who's never been on a board, it's a little confusing.
And confusing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Because they think maybe they're more deeper responsible for things, right? Like,
yeah,
they get a little too in the mix. And I'm doing that right now with one of our affiliate partners. We have there's a lot of changes in the affiliate, and it's the tense, and it's a different kind of board than what I'm used to. It was like one of those old traditional fundraising boards that, really saw themselves as, responsible for part of the budget. And I haven't run into that as much except from the early on when we first started at the clinic. So anyway, it's interesting to see someone who's never been on a board and is the board president. It's like, oh yeah, no. I'm often telling him, no, that's not your job. That's our job.
We have been talking a lot over the last few weeks about, what a board is meant to do, right? Like a visionary board, which I think you've talked about, like that is thinking about where mental health is going to be in 100 years. A fundraising board, an operational board. So it's interesting that you just said fundraising boards are old school. We don't do that anymore.
Well, it's interesting. Fair? Yeah, I had an experience of being on a new nonprofit board recently. This is a great guy. They're doing really important work. Really just started the organization, and had no experience in running a nonprofit at all. And so as we gathered around the table, where's the agenda? What are we talking about? What are we doing? I realized soon that, oops, this group needs some help. And, they didn't even have finance department. And so we volunteered as an organization to run their finances and their ADP for a little while, just as a gift, if you will, as a startup. That was something we did. We didn't run. I didn't hire the people. They gave us the information. We gave them the pieces of information they needed to collect for their people, and helped set up that system. And then, 2 years later, they're ready to do it on their own. They're doing fantastic. Actually, he's, probably quadrupled his finances.
Wow.
But that was an expertise that I felt, was a risk as a board member, and that we could, give to this organization. And he, appreciated and recognizes that the early board was really just helping, what is an agenda, mission, vision, value. And now he has a really great working fundraising board, who are, fundraising is different. It's not just, folks to come and write a check, which of course is critical and important. But what fundraising is really then talking in great way about the organization.
Yes.
Getting people interested in what the organization is doing, so that they then, become curious and connected to the organization.
Yeah.
And that's a fundraising board, I say. The old-fashioned fundraising is the one where, I think, we set 100,000 as the goal, and, events. Cynthia and I were the people who broke the event model at our place. Like the 100th anniversary was the last, was the last gala we've ever held.
Yeah.
Events take so much work.
And, I now challenge the thought about, do we want our board members fundraising? Because that's a science. It is a profession with an expertise.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want the professional to do the fundraising? Board members have a role in being the ambassador. But, this idea of, I'm going to ask my friends for money is just, we need to do away from that, because it also takes away from the ability of bringing other individuals to your board. For instance, those traditional fundraising boards tend to look at people who have money, are wealthy, or have strong relationship collateral. I don't even know if that's the right term, but people who are well connected. And so it misses the point in, well, how about board members who are important because they are consumers?
Yeah.
Or they're the parents of the people you're serving. Like,
right. Yeah, I have a friend who had to raise like $60 million for a new building. And she had to engage people of wealth, right? And
Yeah.
and having those folks on the board is very important. I don't have to do that. You know, we do most of our raising through grants and projects and some dollars through philanthropy. But you know, I think you mentioned it earlier, Peter, there's like different kinds
Yeah.
of boards. There are different sizes of organizations, you know, where you know, Clifford Beers Community Care Center is about a $20 million organization. Together, we're about 35 million as a you know, parent subsidiary model. That's different than, you know, having to raise 60 or you know, $100 million. You know, you really have to know a lot of people, especially capital campaigns.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
those are the, you know, it's a different kind of board you need at that point.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. So we have to ask you because 4 boards, around 50 individuals. Tell us your engagement strategy, or the ones that are not secret, and 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 like, how do you build relationships with 50 people? Like, how do you have the
Yeah.
time? I get asked this all the time. Cynthia, what do you mean I have to build relationships? I'm running an organization. Tell us how you did it, Alice, and how you continue to do it.
Well, you know, first of all, I don't have relationships with all 50.
Mhm.
And, you know, and the relationship period, well, I'm in relationship with them because they're on our
Mhm.
boards and I want to know them. And, you know, I do a lunch or, you know, getting to know them and knowing their skill. I have a lot of board members who are extraordinarily busy. Doing a lot of the work you guys do. And so, you know, who has time? But if I send them an email with a job description and say, I'm looking for a person who has this talent, you know, they'll use their networks and help me do that. And, you know, once in a while we'll go to lunch. I have another board member who calls me every week just to chat. And it's delightful, you know, and it's,
Nice.
you know, telling me history and things like that. So you know, we're all busy. They're busy too. And how, you know, if you use like this time I'm using with this guy, you know, on branding, he wants to help. And this is as interesting to him as it is to me. And so it seems like it's a mutual benefit society.
Mm.
So
um,
it's really about like meeting board members where they're at in terms of their time and how they want to contribute, which requires you do some research.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you know, getting to know what their background is, and you know, a lunch is a good research tool, right? Because you begin to talk about, and then they get to know you a little bit. I mean, for me personally, the thing that I think is the most important a gift, if you will, as a CEO, is that I believe my board trusts me, and they believe what I have to
Mm.
say. And how did that happen? It happened through relationship. It happened through transparent communication, monthly, you know, with a board meeting monthly, you know, communicating what we're doing and coming to them before, you know, before a problem boils up. And one guy who was my CFO a long time ago told me, and this is the most important piece of advice I ever got from a board, is never go into a board meeting not knowing the answers you're going to get.
Mm.
So, you know, if I'm going to ask for, you know, tolerance for, you know, a budget loss of, you know, a couple $100,000, I would never just spring it on them at the board meeting.
Mm.
You know, I would
That's
only tell
important.
them before
Yeah.
and tell them
That's
why.
Yeah, yeah. And also you mentioned something before, which is important, using the example of the branding person, that then the board member becomes the ambassador
Yeah,
within the board, right? So
right,
now you don't have to sell it
Mm.
to 18 people.
right,
You have the expert,
right.
quote unquote, selling the idea to 18
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
So,
and you know, it gives an example to the board of how they themselves can contribute, you know.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a you know, it's a it, it's like having, if it works well, and this is my belief, and just as you pointed out, there's different kinds and different times, right? Developmentally, if it works well, you've got a bunch of expert consulting people you can consult with, even if the person is retired and they're not, really involved in the business that you're in. There's a role for them and important conversations that you can hold.
Nice. Well, Alice, our time has ended. Can you imagine? Those 30 minutes go really fast. But my God, we've learned so much from you. And we were really looking forward to hearing about building relationships and the importance of engagement. And we love having you on the show. I am sure we'll have you back. But thank you. Thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you to our listeners and viewers. And we'll see you next week, same time. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
You too.